Hello and good morning. Welcome to episode 6 of With the Braintrust. Reminder, we are a bi-monthly networking group. We meet over 6 years, and over the last couple months, what we've been doing is taking the last half of our meetings into a podcast format so we can share, distill everything that we've been discussing, and allow other people to hopefully benefit from our discussion. So let's do a quick intro of the Braintrust. David?
Hello, everybody. I am David Levine. I'm a virtual professional. I help small business owners get their businesses found.
You, Rosetta?
I'm Rosetta Metz with Let Us Organize. We provide solutions to all your organizational needs. Let us organize your tomorrow so you can enjoy today.
Lita?
Hi, Lita Bunting with Snimka Creations. I'm a professional digital photo organizer. Spend time making memories, not managing them.
Corey?
Corey Friedman, CF Financial. We provide a range of financial services, including budgeting, interim fractional CFO, and various kinds of financial analysis.
And Lynn?
Good morning, Lynn Martin, Bio One Chicago North, crime, trauma, and hoarding scene cleanup, specializing in cleaning up homicide, suicide, unattended death, hoarding situations, or any type of biohazard situation. Bio One, help first, business second.
And I am Michael Rattay, Creative Family Memories. I'm using a tag family media specialist, so family portraits, video memoirs, and family legacy movies. So today, if you'll notice, out of all of our businesses, they make sense, but they also don't make sense cohesively. And one of the things about networking that took me a little bit of time to realize is that power partners doesn't necessarily mean that they look and act exactly like you. Sometimes that can be people in totally different industries that sometimes that where it's worked, it almost works the best. You have a yin and yang versus, someone that's exactly like you. So I wanted to at least discuss that. Rosetta, how about do you want to talk to us about some of your power partners?
Well, a lot of times you want to know, do they have a reach like out to your audience? Is that something that they have? It doesn't necessarily mean that every one of their clients would be your clients, but they might be people that you want to talk to because they might be able to influence their clients for you. Also their reputation. Are they somebody you can trust? Have they had a good record? Because you don't really want to make a power partner with somebody that you don't think you can count on. And
yeah,
then
that's a huge thing.
Yeah, and then the other thought was like, is it relevant? Are they aligned with what you're doing and what maybe your value system and things like that? Because you might have some power partners that might not really follow the same value system that you have. And to me, that would be kind of a struggle for me to work with that person.
Culture, I think that's one of the hardest things with businesses that take over old businesses, is the culture clash. And so I think that personality, and that's also what I was starting to get at with us, is I think, the personality is really what comes through with all the businesses, right? So, I mean, that's what we're really working together with. Does anyone else want to jump in on that?
One of the things that I think about when, what I do is a very unique service. And so a lot of people don't even know that there's such a thing as a photo manager. So when I'm partnering with someone and I'm like, oh, wait, I have a client who has the same thoughts, or I have a client who is doing the same thing. So something as like far reaching as like an estate planner for me is a good power partner, because those people are thinking about their future. They're thinking about how they are going to settle their estates. Well, photos are part of that, but under a normal circumstance, nobody thinks of that. So you kind of have to think outside the box when you're trying to identify power partners. Rosetta is a natural one. She's a home organizer. I organize photos. That goes hand in hand, but like the far-reaching ones, that's where we can get unique, and that's where we can really make a difference and really forge those good relationships.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's, so for me, I always found it ended up being naturally like personality just meshing, right? Like just someone that I started working, or someone that I could just hang out with or enjoy being with, and that became someone that you end up being a power partner, right? I mean, literally as basic as that is a good start to a relationship, right?
But that's true in any business
Thing.
development and business building
Right.
thing. You
'Cause
want to
the
kind of
person-
like the people you're working with.
Right. And the personalities, though, you may not always be that way. And you got, as a business, you got to know that. And so, like, as much as I said, maybe I wouldn't enjoy working with them, it doesn't mean I'm not going to.
Mm.
So if there are persons of influence that you need to be with,
Yeah.
and you need to maybe they have people in their group that you do like and that you do like working with, but you can't get to them until you're talking with the one
Right.
person or get in that group. So you kind of have to know your audience and speak kind of their language if you're trying to
Yeah.
I
work
also
in
think,
that sense.
I think it goes back to what you said earlier, Rosetta, and what Michael said about trust, because we all meet a lot of people networking, and just because we meet them doesn't mean we're going to refer them, and doesn't mean we want to be part. Even if they're in the same, even if they're like, I'm always looking to like work with IT people because those are great referral partners, because people are always saying, complaining about their websites to them. So, but some of them I wouldn't let touch my computer if my life depended on it. And, I appreciate the referrals, but, it's kind of one of those things where I think the trust factor is really important when it comes into the whole, just because they might be the right industry, if they're the wrong fit, you don't want your name to go on the, introductory email, because it could come back to bite you.
Yeah, that's true. Because then you have cultures. I mean, this is such a personality slippery slope, and I'm obviously trying to play it in a very diplomatic way. But this is but I mean, that's important, because then obviously if you can't have trust, because then you agree to something. I mean, Rosetta's kind of, that's boundaries in essence, like understanding what they're going to be and who they're going to be, because then if you don't agree with those personalities coming through, I mean, then you have a fire hose of cultured, undifferent cultured people coming in, and then it totally screws up your business, because like, wait, I had these ethics, these things in mind, and now you're pushing this on me. And so I think that's, to both all of your points, like trust, and that's why it's important. And so to break it down to step one is where I think, like, when you meet these people, this is where everyone, I think, is so important, or pushing, is like, do a one-on-one, because that's really where you get to know somebody, right? I mean, do you guys have any? Well, Lita knows one of my first things too is I was doing podcasts with people. Like earlier, we kind of met, and then it was like, well, we have a similar business and our personalities mesh. Let's do a podcast. And that was like, for me, that was a way to meet people that have guts. Like, I know there are people that are bold that want to do that. And then, so it's like certain, I don't know. So do you guys use other things to find your people?
I think one-on-ones are critical to get to know people a little better, and even after the one-on-one, to go look at their reviews and how other people perceive them. Like Rosetta, you talked about putting resources on your website. You're not going to want to put a resource on there that you haven't vetted,
Right.
that you haven't worked with, that you don't have that complete trust in referring them to somebody else. So now
Exactly.
it's on your website, and it's a reflection of you if I went and botched a job for somebody. So I think one-on-ones are the first step just to creating some trust amongst people, and just to get to know people a little better, understand their values, understand why they're doing what they're doing, make sure their motivation behind what they're doing is the same as yours. And then taking it from the next couple steps and doing some due diligence checks on the back end too, making sure you don't go on their reviews and find nothing but 2 and 3 stars. Well, there's a problem. And that's it's important to make sure whoever we're referring we trust.
Yeah, the other thing is like give everybody and yourself some time. Like if you meet somebody in a networking group and that networking group gets together, you know, some of them only get together monthly, some of them get together twice, you know, twice a month. You really aren't getting to know people as well. So you do have to do those one-on-ones. Well, it's not going to take just one one-on-one. I mean, it takes multiple touches. When I was doing business development in the corporate world, my mentor, one of the bosses ahead, you know, way above me was like, each relationship at a minimum takes 18 months to cultivate. Do not expect someone to sign a deal before you've known them for at least 18 months. And because I was putting a lot of pressure on myself, I'm like, well, I haven't landed this big deal. Well, it takes time. Like the relationships and the one-on-ones, if you're doing one-on-ones, there's weeks in between them. So patience, I think, is critical in this. I mean, Mike, how long have you and I known each other? I think that we met 2018.
Yeah.
I mean,
28.
we're old.
Yeah.
Years.
Right. Yeah, we almost have an anniversary.
How about that?
Like networking for 10 years, that's like a
I mean,
that's
did you
amazing.
even have any kids when we first met? I mean,
No,
like,
I had
now you
I
have
had
like
one.
how many?
I had one kid, now I have 3.
Okay.
That's why one client, she's like, "Oh, now you have 3." I was like, "You had 3 kids when we first met. Don't even." I was just
A lot can change.
I just waited a minute. But that's both you guys said the thing, and that's time. Like the 4th dimension is like the hardest thing I think for all of us to understand and get our minds around. And I think, but it's so important. Like 18 months. I mean, I even skipped a breath, like thinking, like, you know, like, can you imagine starting a job within your first month and you want to get paid, and then your boss is like, well, it's going to take you 18 months before you land a big deal. And you're like, but I'm in a commission job. You know, it's like, what are you talking about? And so I think, but if you know that, you know, like that's where you can sort of mentally prepare yourself for something like that, which is where I think a lot of, I mean, that's a whole other thing of starting a business with money on the side or a side, you know, a side hustle. And I think that's a whole other aspect, but timing and multiple touches, I think those are the most important things, because that's what we have. We have to keep proving ourselves. Corey, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, especially with you know, a lot of us are solopreneurs, right? So, you know, if you're like a corp, you know, large company, you have a certain brand value, correct? You're synonymous with this, you're known for that. You know, it could also, you know, obviously those bigger companies, that time takes less, right? Because either you know them, you like them, or you don't like them, and or if you're looking for a similar company, then maybe go to a competitor if you're not happy with, you know, some of the, you know, the known companies out there. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a degree of patience, but I think it's commensurate with like your brand or your brand value out there. But again, a lot of us are solopreneurs, so yeah, that 18 months or so, that sounds about right, you know, for sure.
And even just knowing that, you know, like going into a business, like, you know, like would anyone have started a business if they're like, it's got to take you 18 months? Like I remember David used to say, be somewhere a year. And he was like, that's about when you make your thing. But it's real. I mean, and it's not just being there. It really is being active, and it's getting involved with people, because showing up and not seeing anyone doesn't let you get known. So I think,
To Corey's point, when he talked about, you know, like takes time to trust them and things like that, and your brand and all of that, because you're developing it and people don't know who you are like a big company. Somebody just recently posted on LinkedIn this morning, I saw it was about Warren Buffett, and he was talking about how, yes, we want to make money, we want to make sales, but we also want our reputation. And it only takes 30 seconds for that to go away. So it could be one conversation, it could be something you did, it's gone. And then you have to start all over again. So for us, it's really important because
right.
it's everything we have. It's the solopreneur, like you were saying, Corey. So
Yeah. frightening and exciting at the same. That's like the whole we build 1,000 bridges, but yeah, it's stuff just falls. I mean, we saw with stocks, like stuff always falls way faster than it does to get back, which is like, I don't know what it is, but it just takes so much longer to build goodwill. And so that is, and a lot of and the reason I'm also honing in on this is because I don't think I realize that as much. You know, like when you're first starting out, you don't realize that that's the thing that everyone's talking about. And it's like, oh, that's like everyone's just literally wondering who the hell you are and like making sure you're not going to take somebody's money and then show up again. And so that's a big thing to like understand.
I have to say there is upside or positives to this. I mean, you're agile, you're flexible, you know, you're willing to listen a little bit more, right, to a customer, potential customer, right? And that only helps, right? Obviously, if you're big, you know, flexibility is maybe not your thing or is a lot harder
Right.
to be flexible. So I mean, there's upside, right? You know,
Oh, yeah.
as you develop your brand, develop your company, you know, get more mature and so forth.
Yeah, even for ourselves, like just to internally, we got to understand our voice because sometimes that, I know me personally, my first elevator pitch is way different than my, 9-month in, and so sometimes it's us formulating our own opinion. So, David, how about you? What do you think about all of this?
You know, being that I had a business for almost 20 years and I had my brand and I had my power partners and it was established and everybody knew me. And then I sold the business and, you know, dealt with some health issues and I started again. And looking at who my power partners were for almost 20 years and who my power partners are now, either I'm in a different, I went from selling candy and gift baskets and corporate gifting and things of that nature. Now I'm helping small businesses grow. But it's interesting because as I'm starting to network with people that I networked with before, they still see me as the candy man. And, it's, oh, there's the candy man. I might not be wearing the pink shirt anymore or passing around the candy. But so it's kind of like there's the trust, but they don't know that I could do what I could do. So it's starting from scratch all over again in many cases. And it's building, we keep going back to, the trust. And it's kind of like it takes a long time to build up. And you're saying the 18 months. And yeah, it took, to get some of those big corporate accounts, it took a long time. And I know my biggest corporate account when I had the candy store was because I sold to one of their branch offices for years and delivered on time. And then they referred me to the mothership, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a trust that was built up. So it was more than 18 months when that one went from wow to oh my God. But I think that's for all of us. And it's kind of like as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it. I know that when I decided to start doing what I'm doing, my focus was one thing. And I've already, within a year and a half, my focus has transitioned a little because I realized that in order to do what I really thought I wanted to do, I needed to offer more services than just one thing. And I realized that by delivering quality service in one area would open doors into other areas. But it all comes down to being a person of your word and doing what you say in order to build trust. And once you have that and people know that you deliver on time, on promise, regardless what your field is, they're going to be more comfortable to refer you. And depending on if your industries are compatible or aligned, then we can become partners. But it takes time. You can't expect somebody to start referring you because you started networking with them last week or last month. I mean, I know that when I meet somebody, if they like, oh, I had it before and I have it now, where people are like, oh, I saw somebody on LinkedIn. Could you refer me? And I really don't know them at all. But the other person I do know, I'll say I met so-and-so networking. I didn't say they're my friend. I didn't know them. It's a very, open-ended, I met this person networking. They're looking to meet somebody in your industry. They asked me if I can make a connection. happy networking. There's no,
And that's framing it too. That's
Yeah.
you're framing it at least. You're not saying like give this person $40,000. You're like, I just met them a couple weeks ago and they're curious about your, and yeah,
and I think but that's also part of the trust thing, because it's not like I'm offering them up as an expert in anything. I'm
right.
saying, you guys are, good in, you might be power partners, you might be able to do business together, but I didn't say, anything in particular about one of them because I just met them.
Right.
And the other person I did, it's kind of like I've known them for. So I think it's all how you frame it. And I think it's, you got to look at the long game, not the short game. Because if you're looking for the quick score, if you're looking for the quick score and the quick sale.
Right. And that's what we talked about last week. It just doesn't
Yep.
work.
Yep.
No, it's, I forgot, I think it's a Harvard Business Review talked about the cost of a repeat customer versus acquiring a new customer.
Oh yeah.
And, it's it's the same thing with power partners. The cost of, it takes a lot to build a strong power partner.
Right.
But once you have a strong power partner, you want to make sure you maintain that relationship.
Yeah, it's cultivating, and it doesn't happen in one meeting.
No, I mean, one of my biggest sources of business has been from my friend who's also in IT. And, how did I get some of my clients? Because he's referred them, because he was at their office and felt their pain.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, I got a guy.
Right. And the more you're doing one-to-ones with people, and the more like we see each other all the time, frequently. So you're already up here.
Mhm.
It's like,
It's
I got a
easier
guy.
for it to just come out.
Right.
Right away you think of, oh yeah, I know somebody.
Which is so, and this will be the importance. I think like the main two things, or a couple things that I'm hearing that everyone needs to really understand, is the patience is like, I think the biggest thing, because it's not going to happen in one meeting. So we need to continually be whoever we say we are. Maybe that's just it. Just the long game. Long game and multiple touches. Is that about the summation?
Yeah.
And the word trust came up a lot too. From
Trust, yeah,
people.
that's true. Which
And
part of
relevance. I mean, I just think that if
yeah,
the person you met just isn't relevant in any way, shape, or form of giving you connections or talk, there's no connection whatsoever, then I would move on.
that is a discussion right there. Because if your personalities match, so are you saying
Well,
the
I'm saying
personality, or are you saying
your personalities could match, but are you just there to hang out and have have fun, or are you actually,
right,
making progress towards, so you can make friends. That's different, but it depends on what if you're trying to grow your business, or it has to be some relevance somewhere.
Although I did get many a client in my previous life from people that were, I called networking friends, and I never thought in a million years.
That's where I was like, because if you connect with somebody, it's almost like in time, like that's where I think it's also important to square one. Are you friendly with them, or do you guys mesh like in a cultural manner? Because you may not know where the connection comes, but then 10 years down the line, they'll be like,
true. So I guess my point is that you want to be mindful of your networking events then, how you're spending your time, because time is money.
Yes.
So if you're just going to events and you're not making the connections that you really need to be making, then maybe you just need to reevaluate how you're networking.
Well, and that could be a whole nother podcast about like
time
looking
management.
at the attendee list in advance, or knowing who's going to be there and seeking them out and initiating a conversation and saying, hey, I've been wanting to get to know you. Can we schedule a one-on-one? I mean, like there's a whole strategy to how to make the most from networking events, whether it's in person or over Zoom.
You're right. And that's a good spot to leave it, because we could open the can of toothpaste and 30 minutes later. But no, I think that was all those things though. I think there's a lot of, I mean, we're all in the long game. I think that's the hardest thing to understand when you're first starting out. But if you can put your mindset into thinking, okay, I need to be here for a minute, then I think it just changes how you react to everybody. And I think you just have you're not rushing everybody to close. Like you're kind of letting it breathe. And I mean, people could tell, right? Like if they're trying to close you on that call versus like let it breathe, I don't know. I think it comes through. So, does anyone else have any other final thoughts? I think that was, we hit it. All right, everyone. Well, this was episode 6. We discussed power partners / power partners. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.